Hello everyone and welcome to this short video, and in today's video we are going to be discussing about delisting of a stock from the stock exchange. So to understand what delisting is, we should of course first understand what is listing of a company, and then we'll come to delisting and the effects of delisting. And let's say I'm holding shares in a company which is going to get delisted or has been delisted from the stock exchange. So where can I sell these shares, or am I just going to hold this back forever? So first off, I'll start with listing, and let's go on my screen first and discuss it as usual, right? So let me take you to my word real quick. So let's talk about listing, right? And I'll try to make this video short. Listing. So listing is nothing but when a company wants to raise funds and it lists on the stock exchange for trading, right? So any company, any private company, when they need funds from the public, they go and list themselves on a stock exchange, and once it's listed on the stock exchange, people can buy and sell the shares of the company, right? But what happens, let's say the example of Apple. I own Apple, it's a listed company, but what happens if it gets delisted? So Apple is listed on the New York Stock Exchange. What happens when Apple has been taken out of the stock of the New York Stock Exchange, and I still hold the shares? What am I going to do? Am I going to lose my money, or where am I supposed to sell the shares? Now let's talk about delisting. So there are two types of delisting. There can be a voluntary delisting and there can be an involuntary delisting. So this one is a bad thing to happen, but voluntary delisting is not as bad, right? It can sometimes also be a good thing. So let's talk about the reasons. What can be the reasons for voluntary delisting? So voluntary delisting is when the company itself wants to take itself private. It's listed on the stock exchange, it's public right now, but it wants to take itself private and voluntarily delist itself. So the reasons can be, let's say, acquisition by a PE firm. So a private equity firm purchased Apple, let's say, just a hypothetical example, and now it wants to take it private. So that's voluntary delisting. Then another reason for voluntary delisting could be saving costs. Okay, so public companies, the listed companies, they have to incur a lot of costs. These are costs in terms of reporting requirements, sending out annual reports to the investors and stakeholders, sending out quarterly reports, and maintaining the listing standards. Every exchange in the world has their listing standards, and companies must meet those standards, or else they will get penalized, or else they will have the threat of being removed from the exchange, of being banned from trading and stuff like that. So there are a lot of costs involved for a company to be publicly listed. So to save costs, companies can delist themselves. Then there can also be restructuring, right? It can be corporate restructuring or restructuring, right? So different sorts of corporate restructuring in which the management decides that it's better to go private, and these are the voluntary reasons, some of them. But let's talk about the voluntary delisting. Involuntary delisting reasons means the company does not want to get delisted, they want to still be listed, but the stock exchange bans them from being listed on the platform. For example, I'll give you an example. When a company fails to meet the, let's say, listing standards, okay, or there's another reason, when the price of the company or the price of the stock falls below 1 for an extended period of time, right? So if a listed company is not meeting the standards, it can be delisted by the stock exchange. And if the stock price of a listed company has fallen below $1 and it stays there for a long time, let's say 30 days, 40 days, then it has the threat of being delisted. And then if it does not report, let's say a listed company does not report earnings or file the necessary documents in a quarter, it can face delisting. So all of these are involuntary reasons of delisting, right? So now you know what is listing, what is delisting, and two types of delisting. There is voluntary delisting when the company itself wants to go private, and there is involuntary delisting when the company wants to stay on the stock exchange, but because of few reasons which they have failed to maintain the standards or some shit, so they will get involuntarily delisted. Now the final question: what happens to my money in case company gets delisted? And the answer is nothing. You can still trade the stock on an OTC market. Now, what is OTC market? It means over the counter market. Now, what is over the counter market? So yeah, your question is answered. That let's say I'm holding shares in the company Apple. Apple gets delisted. It's not there on the stock exchange. I was buying and selling Apple stock on that stock exchange, but now Apple is not there on the stock exchange. So what am I supposed to do? Nothing. You can trade that on the over the counter market. Now, this over the counter market, there are some bad things about the over the counter market. It's also called pink sheets. Okay, pink sheets. Pink sheets. Now, I'll give you a quick example of what OTC is and whether it's good or bad. So OTC market does not have reporting requirements. Okay, so whenever a listed company on the stock exchange, they get delisted, they go to the OTC market. So on the OTC market, there are no requirements to file your annual reports or meet some sort of threshold requirements or any sort of things which the stock exchange requires the companies to do. Okay, so no accounting standards. Listed companies on stock exchange, all of them have to follow uniform accounting standards, but on OTC there is no such regulation or requirements. So this is why people get delisted here. They go to OTC market, and if you're holding the shares of that company, you can go to the OTC market and sell it. But OTC market is very volatile. Okay, and at times there is low volume, there is high spread. Okay, finding buyers or sellers for your stock can also be I mean, I don't know if this method of writing you and talking at the same time is a good one, but I really feel that it does have a strong impact. So that's why I talk and type at the same time. So, it has an added impact. So yeah, the question was, what happens when a company you have stock in gets delisted? The answer is nothing. You can trade it on the OTC market, right? Now, what is the good thing about OTC? That they don't have reporting requirements, so companies, they can save a lot of cost. But the bad thing for the investors and stakeholders is that the market is very volatile. There is low volume, there is high spread, right? So the bid and ask is having a high spread, and sometimes you cannot find buyers and sellers for the required price which you want. So all of these things happen, but at the end of the day, getting delisted can be a good thing for companies, as we saw here. That is, if they're voluntarily delisting themselves. But it can be a bad thing for stakeholders and for owners when they get involuntarily delisted. And also there is something called relisting, and this is the last point before we end our video, and that is relisting. Okay, and usually whenever there is a news about delisting, that is when stock exchange bans the company, delists the company, so the stock price usually falls. Most of the time, more often than not, 99% of the time, when a company is getting delisted involuntarily, the stock price falls. But when a company is coming back on the stock exchange, it is getting relisted, the stock price rises. Okay, so this is what happens. And let me go back here. Let's zoom this in and talk to you guys. Right, so I hope you understood what happens when a company gets delisted, and make sure you see some other videos on my channel. I'm pretty sure you will find, if you found this video to be helpful and knowledgeable, I'm pretty sure you will also relate the same thing in my other videos. Go to my playlist. I have some playlists about crypto, some about NFTs, and do consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you very much, and I wish you a good day.